about this place that there's always,
The energy of here.
yeah, it's always attracted me.
How many months a year did you stay here when you owned it?
Well, it depends, you know. So I bought this place in, when did I buy this? Maybe 2004 or 5, right? And,
After George died.
yeah, after George died. And I kind of stumbled onto, through,
He built the house.
yes, well, you know, a lot of people built the house, but George was a moving force, that's for sure. It's his vision. Jeff. So I met Jeff probably in 2001 or 2, and
He owns the house next door.
and I came.
He was
to
a
visit.
young guy that partied.
Right. He was a
And
musician.
he was in a band.
You should.
Oh, he didn't. He didn't
was-
party. He was just
well,
a
no,
musician.
he was a musician. He was an artist, so he lived that lifestyle. Yes, he partied, but not. You know, he didn't party. He just had a good time. Partying kind of symbolizes something more than just having a good time. Anyway, so I used to come up here. You know, he said, "Oh, you need to come up here." So I did, and I would always bring food and wine, and he liked that. And we would sit around when he went and had gigs at different bars, I would go and I would read cards and palms and stuff, and he liked that. Anyway, after, you know, a month or 2 of being his buddy, he goes, "You need to meet the lady who owns, who built this place, and you know, Inga." So we went, and I met Inga back in the 70s when I was working in a foundry, and she cast these bronze. And that's when I first met her and George. And so I walked in her door, and she looked up at me, and she goes, "Oh, there you are." And I said, "Oh yeah, there you are." And so, you know, Jeff kind of looked at me and said, "So you know her?" I said, "Yeah." And
that was in New York.
yeah. And so anyway, Inga and I had a deeper kind of relationship than she had with everybody else. Even though she spent way more time with everybody up on this hill, she looked at them more like children, you know, as like, you know, she was like the woman who was living here, you know. She had gotten to in a place where she hadn't really been paying Inga rent forever, right? And so this hill is very interesting stuff. It manifests things for people, and if people are aware, conscious, it will do whatever it wants. But if people, like a good deal of the people who were here just partied, and the hill thought, "Oh well, that's what they want, so that's what I'll manifest for these morons." And so anyway, Inga wasn't having the kind of rent roll she should have been. You know, she had 4 or 5 of these bungalows, and she was not everybody was paying her rent. Anyway, so I would come and visit her, and in the you know, early O's. And one day she said, "You need to buy the school," because she would see me, you know. And I was living in Vinton at that time. Those little houses I was living in one of them. And so I said, "Oh yeah, I'll think about it." And so I had a place in the Florida Keys, and I had a place in near Jensen Beach on the East Coast, and a few other places,
And you had the 5 places in Vinton.
yeah, the little houses in Vinton. But I stayed only in one. And I had a place in Lynchburg too. So anyway, so I didn't buy this place, and right off the bat, and so I would be in Roanoke maybe 3 months of the year, you know. And when wintry time would come, I would kind of head down to Florida around the 10th of December, and I would stay down there until March, mid-March. And I would come up, and I would hang at different places, and anyway, and I would cruise into here, springtime, May, and check out how things were going, and we'd go over to Lynchburg, and I had a kind of. Do you know Lynchburg very much?
I've been to Liberty once or twice.
I got a really interesting factory building between Rustburg and Lynchburg. It was in Lynchburg, but it was like right there on 501, and it was right along the James River, and it's a nice big building, and I got it for nothing, and I didn't even the guy who had the building, I held the paper, he held the paper, and I gave him like, I don't know, $4 or $5 grand, and it was a big building. It was like 40,000 square feet, big, like old factory building.
Cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Do you remind you of those places in New York?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I bought it. It reminded me of that. And it was on the James River. I mean, that was a beauty, and it was, that building wasn't back in the day, but that property had been a manufacturing thing since like before the Civil War. And the James River was power and transportation. And so the property had a really nice, the factory building was here off of 501, and then it kind of rolled down to the river, and it was a nice chunk of like almost parkland. And I built a nice little platform, like a deck, and with a little, protector from the rain, and my little hibachi there, and it was quite nice. I had parties there. I had a lot of friends in Lynchburg. Lynchburg had, for all of Jerry Falwellness, Lynchburg had a very diverse, interesting kind of crowd. There were a bunch of artists and philosophers and thinkers.
I wasn't aware of that, but when I went to Lynchburg, I felt love.
Yeah,
I drove through the town,
right,
and there's this beautiful sunset.
Or did you just stay on the highway?
There's this beautiful sunset. That time it was just driving through town, but I may have been there another time. And when I drove through town, there's this beautiful sunset, like no sunset I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was driving like through these highways and stuff that like would go around almost like in a weird, huge giant circle.
460 goes
huge
right
giant circle around the town, and
right.
like the sunset was like engulfing everything with this really beautiful light.
It just doesn't have Liberty College. It had 4 or 5 other colleges that were. There was a women's college, I think Mason or something, and I think that's closed.
Randolph Mason.
Yeah, Randolph Mason, I think. And there were 2 other schools kind of like that. And they were really interesting kind of schools. Like I said, the teachers there were interesting folk. So anyway, I enjoyed that. I really had a nice time. And I had a friend of mine who is a Native American shaman, and Bo, and he was really interesting guy. And we used to do sweat lodges and ceremony all the time, and it was really nice. I had missed that, and I reconnected to that.
Well, I knew there was something special there because of even Jerry Falwell, his belief in God and Jesus.
Jerry was a good friend of mine.
He was?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had this friend who was a plumber, right? And he, and so before Jerry Falwell really, Liberty College really didn't take off until 2004 or 5, right? And he bought up Nyokio, the silk company, right? And he didn't buy the company, but he bought up, they had manufacturing there, and he bought up those buildings. And that was the bones of Liberty University that they've been built on. But anyway, my my plumber friend, he bought up a good fifth of Main Street of Lynchburg. And back in the day, that was and they're really nice. So he had about 6 really nice 1930s old buildings, right? And some of them were, 5, 6 stories. They were kind of nice and had old time elevators. And I had worked for Otis, so he said, "Can you fix these?" And I made his elevators work. And he had this kind of municipal building on one side. When you come off of 460 or 29, when you come off of 29, which goes right through Lynchburg, the exit to go up onto Main Street, there's a big municipal building. They used it to house their trucks and plows and all kinds of stuff. And then they moved it a little further out of town, and they just had that building. He kind of got that building, and the buildings across the street, which were 3-story, who knows when they were built, but they were very nice. But all that stuff was kind of in disrepair. And so he and this other guy, Tim, who was just starting to be a pretty good carpenter, and he was kind of had Rasta long hair, he had dreads. And he was interested in esoteria. That's how I met Bo, because Bo was Tim's teacher. And
what's esoteria?
Esoteria? Esoteria is a Greek word or Greek root that talks about hidden knowledge. So in
the hidden hand, left hand path of the devil.
No. That would be more occult. Esoteric just means hidden knowledge. And
okay.
It's there's economics, which is esoteric. There's physics that's esoteric, and those are sciences that have nothing to do with the devil, or maybe it does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Right.
Of
So
course
anyway,
not with you.
Right. So it's
because you use words to describe it that aren't necessarily in the Bible, but I think you're really following God and Jesus.
Oh yeah. Well, no, esoteria isn't. Jesus was an Essene, and that was the first frigging esoteric order of God's. So God has all of this knowledge, and He doesn't just give everybody. So anyway, so esoteric is a Greek word. Its root means hidden knowledge, right? So Lynchburg was a big college town in a very small kind of way. Liberty became the big college, but it was the new kid on the block. But anyway, long story short, this plumber owned all these buildings right on the, I guess that would be the north, south, east part of town on the main drag. And, he said, help fix these things up. So I did. And he said, we fixed up one building, and we built it, and we fixed it up to code, to really nice, to rent out, to make a rent roll, right? And so he said, well, you can live on the top floor of this building for, you keep helping me, you can live here. And I thought, good, that's good. And I said, I'll help you, but I can't work here all the time because I worked for an electrician in Lynchburg who was redoing all the courthouses and jails, and I was his #1 guy, and he was paying me real good, and I was doing other stuff, so, we did that. So anyway, we slowly refurbished those 8 or 9 buildings, right? And he rented them out, and one was a bar, and Lynchburg, the only real restaurant downtown was in the Holiday Inn at the other end of town, and they had a dining room, and that was quite a nice place. And that hotel was quite a nice hotel. And so anyway, so he fixed his bar up, and I used to build bars, so we kind of just had to put the bar over here, and we do this and we do that, and we did that. Now he didn't want to run a bar, so what he did was
he didn't want to run a bar.
No, he didn't want to run a bar. He was a plumber,
He didn't want to run a bar.
He didn't want to run a bar or a restaurant. He didn't want to. But he liked money. So anyway, I said, so this is what you do. You own the building. We're fixing this place up. You get it licensed yourself, right? Then you find people who want to have a restaurant, have a passion for a restaurant and a bar, and you rent it to them. And you basically hold the license. And you know, they pay the rent on the facility, plus because you hold the license, the insurance and all that kind of stuff, you take a percentage of what they make at the restaurant along with the rent. And it worked out pretty good. And so people who had a real passion to do it, so they didn't have to come up with that first $200,000, because that's about what it costs to start a restaurant. They could just dump their passion into it. And they would be people who never did it before, but they really wanted to do it. And they did it and did it and did it. And they were pretty, because they were passionate, they were somewhat successful to begin with. And there was no other restaurant except for the hotel. So they had a very, you know, people wanted to eat downtown, they had to eat in that place. And but those people would burn out. And so like every 6 months to 18 months, someone would say, okay, I'm gonna, right, so every 6 months to 18 months, the thing would change, and it would change sometimes, because I built a stage so there could be music, right? That's part of it, because you know, there's a bar and a restaurant, and we had a stage and we had music. And there were a lot of people who were musicians who wanted to play. So we were facilitating a lot of, you know, community needs. And so the whatchamacallit, so it would change all the time. And that goes, I hadn't moved into to Roanoke yet. I was still a Lynchburg, Bedford kind of guy. And but I was in Florida, and I was, you know, in the other 3 places that I was living in. So I would be in this neck of the woods maybe 3 or 4 months of the year, usually spring and early summer. And then I would go up north. I had a place up north, and I'd go there for, you know, when it got hot. So anyway, and my work was, and I was taking care of my parents still, and I was still kind of involved in Asheville, North Carolina, so I moved around a lot, and I've always moved around a lot. That's been one of my motifs. And so anyway, and every time I come back, there'd be a different restaurant in that restaurant, a different bar, a different, you know, a country place, this kind of thing. So one day, I come back, and I'm up in my little apartment above the place, and there was a alternative healing center. And because I had been part of the alternative healing scene in New York, and I taught at the Swedish Institute on 10th Street over by Bank Street in the West Village, people who were in the alternative healing environment and kind of weren't just in their own little box, but knew like the larger, you know, national and international healing. You know, I had been part of that pretty big time in the 70s and early 80s. So anyone who had been around enough kind of knew me. Oh, wow, you were part of it. Oh my God. So this lady who had an alternative healing center and slash, you know, massage school, you only be, oh wow, can you teach? And so I said, sure. So I would teach there. That was kind of good. And so I made a little money out of that. And I was working with a plumber fixing his buildings up, and I was working for the other electrician. Anyway, so I had a nice, comfy life. I was making nice living, and I had no real expenses. Meaning I had no rent, I had no this, I had no that. And so, you know, life was good. And that's pretty been my modus operandi. You know, I try to keep my whatever my bills are down, right? So I live comfortably right now on $400 a month, right? So anyway, so
then you sold the stuff and moved here?
yeah, you know,
Or
not
you
all of
moved-
it, but a chunk of it. to buy this place. And it was again one of these interesting situations in that whenever I bought if you want to make money at real estate, you have to buy low and sell high. I mean, that's just
I know.
the number one rule of real estate. And
I don't want to do it again because it requires relentless years of work.
See, I just would kind of stumble into things. I would have some money. I said, sure, I'll do it. And I never had to pay the full thing. And people just wanted to get out of what they were doing. And I just took their place. And so anyway, I'm, kind of cruise into Lynchburg. And my guy, a lecturing guy, he's got another big job he wants me to run for 2 months. And he's going to pay me ridiculous amounts of money just to make sure it doesn't screw up and he loses money, because his crew was pathetic. It was all his boys. It was like, ugh. Anyway, so I cruise in, and I'm going to work and I'm living upstairs, and the bar is now a down low lesbian bar. And this is in Lynchburg, right?
Wow.
But it's all these girls from this girls' school at the other end of the city, And so you go in there and it'd be all these girls in lumberjack shirts, and there's no guys, it's just girls. And the girl who was running it, I was living upstairs and I bumped into her. We had a nice talk. She kind of opened at 4 o'clock and closed at 2 in the morning. And she didn't have a lunch crowd because there was no lunch. Downtown Lynchburg was dead, but at night people would come out and go places. So, and she had music. So, anyway, we talked and I read her palms, and she really liked that. And then I, did her cards, and then I said, and she goes, you'd be great entertainment. I said, sure, I'll do that. I said, Friday and Saturday
I
night.
never experienced anything like that when I was here. Anything like that ever.
Because your eyes aren't open to that. It's right. This town has an amazing art scene here. Look, we have the Table Museum.
They don't usually make money at it.
A lot of people do. There are a number of, George, look at George. He made a living at it.
He also had to be a builder.
Huh?
He had to be a builder.
He only built his shit. He didn't build anybody else's shit. He wasn't a contractor. These things are art pieces. He built these because he wanted to build this. Not because he had to. He was driven to build this.
Well, when I was back here, there were limited options for me, and I didn't get to just do whatever I felt like. And
you could have, John. I did. I was living here, and I just kept doing all. I was involved with the art scene in this town is amazing, and I was up here in it. When I moved here, right? Like Luck Avenue, there were 5 little theaters at the end of Luck and 5th. I rented. There is a store there that the guy who owned the building only used about 1/5 of it, and he sold carpet and linoleum, right? And he installed it, and he only just had that. But he had a big warehouse, didn't use it, and he had this. On the other side of the warehouse was another store. There were 2 stores up front, a big warehouse in the back, and a big lot. And he kind of down low sold cars, and that's really why he bought that property. He bought it for nothing, and it had a big lot, so he was doing that anyway. So when those people had those theaters, I rented that, warehouse and that little store. And that's why I have so much shit, because I had this kind of store called What Do You Want, where I would just trade my shit for your shit. And I tried to get a better deal, and then at certain days I take money for things. But the warehouse I had as a place, it was like the Paris Commune. About 20 people lived in the warehouse because they had a mezzanine above the warehouse. That was really, and it had offices that were about 8 offices that were as big as those 2 bedrooms and this room, right? And I would rent them out for $300 a piece, right? So I was paying the guy, the linoleum guy, $400 for everything, and the people thought it was great. So they were all artists and painters and poets and playwrights, and so the warehouse floor, there was a place that they had, like the workers had a little kitchen and a bathroom and showers, and we kind of enlarged that, and it was based on the Paris Commune, and we would have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Was kind of open. We would have poetry readings, we would have poetry slams, we would have theater, and we'd have food and booze, right?
Did you ever meet anyone down here, like somebody like Burt Reynolds or somebody like that, like some
Yes.
really big famous person?
Yes, when Mill Mountain Theater, when the original guy did that, I met that guy. He was a New Yorker.
Who?
Mill Mountain Theater.
The guy who owns Mill Mountain Theater?
No, well, I don't know if he owned it, but he started it.
He started it?
And he was a New Yorker, and his whole idea, he worked, in New York theater.
But he owned Mill Mountain Theater. Is that what he did? That's his main thing?
Well, he retired. He was like in his 60s when he got here. He had a big career in New York City on Broadway, theater guy.
He did?
Yes.
Cool.
And so, but this is a cool thing about him. What he did was, so he knew all the theater people in New York. And so I met him because he had my old boss of George and George, which was a theater manufacturing.
He did a real Broadway?
What? Yeah, he was a Broadway guy. And he produced Cats. Cats was his big name thing. But he did a lot of other places too.
He was one of the producers or an associate producer or something like that?
No, he was the main guy. He loved Cats, and the guy he pushed that through. And the sets and everything, and the whole visual, blah, blah, blah. And that's where George and George came in, because in that play, they had
was there anyone like him? Anyone else like him?
A ton of people. Because this is the amazing thing he did, was he wanted to retire. He made a lot of money on Cats and a few other plays, and he sold the theater. He had an old theater on Broadway near 34th Street. Anyway, so he had a bunch of money. He came here. He bought a bunch of real estate and property because he had cash, and Roanoke was in depression, and he bought a big chunk of Grandin. So anyway, he had George and George build the theater and the three theaters that are down in Mill Mountain, not the museum upstairs. That was the county, and he got them to pay for it. I mean, this guy was a pretty slick businessman, and so.
I knew some people that did Broadway. My uncle did.
Yeah.
He was an actor in some Broadway plays. He was in The King and I and some other ones when he was growing up. And then he got out of acting. He had headshots too.
Right.
My mom's brother.
So this guy, he really had a great business plan. So
and I was an editor and producer on a short film that this Tony Award winner won. This lady, Tanya Pinkins. She won for Jelly's Last Jam in, I think, 93. And she went to LA to do movies and stuff, and I worked on a short film with her.
Yeah, that's good.
I was like a camera operator and editor. I don't know if I was a producer, but it was just a cheap short film she wanted to do, and she got some people together and got this other camera operator was a guy that was on The Real World. I think it was called The Real World. Mm-hmm. The first reality shows on MTV. He was on like the first few seasons. Mm-hmm. He was kind of famous, and he was in LA, and he I worked on that stuff with them. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore, because she wasn't paying me money. So I just didn't.
Paying you?
Maybe free food or something in credit, and so that was when I was like pretty young. I was in my early 20s.
Right. Well, that's the kind of jobs man, I did so many jobs.
I don't want to do the unpaid stuff anymore though.
Well, when you're young, you do the.
But in LA, they have here and there, they literally have billionaires billionaires or people with hundreds of millions of dollars looking for people who know how to originate, ideas and write screenplays and direct movies, and all the creative types are looking for people who are good at that can come up with new content so they can keep making their movies and finding new people who are like really good and really motivated to do all this new stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's been that way ever since, and that was one of the things Mill Mountain was. So this guy came in. George and George built the theaters. I meet the guy because George and George, that company, the guys who run it were my buds, and I was their electrician for years. Anyway. And I was here, and they said, "Oh, you're going to be, we got a gig in Roanoke." So that was the first time I kind of cruised into Roanoke to hang with these guys and see what they needed on that. And his whole idea, because he knew all of these New York theater folk.
Al Bundy.
No.
Your real last name is Bundy.
Yeah.
Al Bundy. Because you started scratching your private part. Okay. No! What did you do?
I'm Al Bundy. Yeah.
Get away from me!
I'm Al Bundy. Yeah, I'm Al Bundy. No. Yeah, I'm Al Bundy. Yeah. I'm Al Bundy. Yeah. I remember when I was a football player. Al Bundy.
No!
Anyway, this guy is real good. And this is what I'm trying to tell you, John. This town has an amazing amount of artists. All you got to do is look for them, and they're there.
The thing is, I can't imagine how that Mill Mountain guy actually did all that Mill Mountain here.
Oh, he did a great job. You know what he...
Like, I've tried to do... I made movies here.
His greatest thing was...
I made 2 real movies here. One of them I got famous people in.
So, he builds a theater, right? And it's kind of like community, but what makes it like professional, so he knows all these New Yorker Broadway types, right? And he gets them to come to Roanoke, and right at the corner where Campbell, hits, the highway there, right? There's that building right on the corner, that white building. He bought that building and turned it kind of into a hotel, not for the public, but for the New Yorkers who would come and teach directing, teach acting, and then perform in the plays, right? And he was quite amazing. And so that's where I met a lot of, I knew a couple of guys who showed up, but that's where what was the guy you were talking about with the mustache? A handsome guy. He did Cannonball Run.
Burt Reynolds?
Yeah, so he came here and acted. That's when I met Burt Reynolds here in Roanoke, Virginia.
Burt Reynolds?
Yeah. He came and was here for about 2 months acting and directing a play. And that was the beauty of Mill Mountain. They don't do that anymore. Now they do whatever the fuck they're doing now. And but that's what was amazing about that thing, and it made frigging money. and that's what I'm trying to tell you. And so that's when luck. Did you ever go to any of those theaters?
I have not gotten to feel that way in.
And they're in 2005,
8 or 8 years.
2004, 5, and 6 when Luck had those theaters. And there was Blue something that was a restaurant and blues nightclub. There were 5 music venues in Roanoke. Did you go to any of them? Did you go to the Water Heater, the Phoenix?
Why did I not make money at it here? Not as much money at it. I made some money.
But all these places really work. The one thing I noticed about Roanoke, they will come, like, did you ever go, that road, there's a big highway, right? and that goes through town. That comes from 81. What is that? 420, right? The big bypass. Anyway,
581.
581. And there is that industrial where the railroad tracks are and the train station is, and you go over this bridge, and it's like the industrial side, and Vinton's over here, and Garden City's over here, and you know, the big hospital is right there downtown, and there were four big factory buildings, and this one woman. So I was working at Mill Mountain, and she knew the guy, and she came in and she was talking to me. And what she did, do you know what a rave is?
No, I don't know. What
Rave is a big party, right? It's a Celtic word for big party, and raves usually are electronica. Dance music, it's like a disco, right? And so flashing lights, electronica, disco music, and ecstasy, right?
Yeah, I've been to places like that. Like my friend, one of my friends rented a big building downtown.
Yes.
And he'd play music in it really loud and like charge people to get in the door.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. This lady started that scene.
He got to make money at it for a while.
Yes.
And then the owner kicked him out and fixed it up really nice, and it was like way too expensive.
Right. And that's what I'm saying about Roanoke, is that it goes through these trends. So there was a theater.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And
I haven't been anywhere like that since.
And so when that lady started it off, it was probably 14 years ago. And she had this big factory building, and she had raves, and it was right downtown. You could hear the music. It made the whole town, like at 3 a.m, the whole fucking town was being boom, 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 right? And the cops, she paid the cops off. They never came back, and so she made a fortune at, you know, selling water, liquor, ecstasy, and the door. She would make 10 to 20 grand a night, because she'd have 500 or 600 people. The building department, the fire department, no one ever showed. Now, they had big doors, so it wasn't like, you know, you couldn't get out of there. It wasn't like dangerous.
Well, you can't sell ecstasy.
They were selling ecstasy.
Oh.
You know, at $2 and $3 a hit. So, you know.
I'm aware of that. I almost started a club here with my friend one time.
So why didn't you?
We started looking into the business side of it, because he owned a tattoo shop, and with his friend, and his friend was
is he the guy who did the tattoo on you?
No, I wanted him to do the tattoo on me at the time, but this other person did it. And it was on 220. It was called Southside 220. It was like going towards Rocky Mountain and stuff like that, and it was on the right.
Yep.
And it was like kind of like out on the right towards the country, and they rented this big building there.
Right.
And he would do tattoos, and his friend was really good at promoting shows.
Right.
And they'd put on big shows, and they had a tattoo shop there.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
All these kids would go to it.
That's what I'm saying, that
all these like teenagers and stuff would go to it.
Right.
And I don't know if they had drinking or not, but I think they didn't have drinking.
Well,
but
see, the thing about this town...
And then I was going to start a business like that with him.
So why didn't you?
And it was terrible, because we almost considered it being a strip club. Because that was back when I thought that stuff was cool. But when it came down to actually doing that kind of thing, it just felt sleazy and stuff. It just felt sleazy, so I couldn't do it. It just felt sleazy, so I couldn't do it.
Well, you know, I built a number of...
But I was looking, we were looking for a place to rent.
Right.
Or I was going to try to get my parents to invest in one and buy it, and then I'd work at it. But that was back when I like would go to my parents, and they might like invest in stuff.
Right. Oh, okay.
But I'd have to like really work at it.
Right.
And And so I didn't get a place like that, and I don't really want to anymore.
Right. Well, see, that's the whole thing about stuff like that. It's those opportunities come around once in a while, and you either have to jump on them or not. So we're gonna tack back to Lynchburg.
I'm glad I did.
And I was doing reading palms and runes and things at this lesbian bar downtown Lynchburg, right? So, and I lived upstairs, right? But I would make from the lesbian girls maybe $100 a night, right? It's not bad, and free booze from the lady who ran the place, and so that $100, that Holiday Inn at the other end of the main drag there, they had a Friday, Saturday night gig where if you checked in on Friday and stayed Saturday, because that was a business hotel, so they didn't really have a lot of business on the weekends. So for $60, you got a suite upstairs. They had a pool on the roof, and they had suites around it. And you, for $60, you got a suite for Friday night, Saturday, and you checked out Sunday, and you got.
They have a lot of small businesses here.
Not anymore.
Like a lot of people can do that stuff.
Yeah, not anymore.
Oh, but you were working for them at the time, but then you owned all that stuff. Like you owned all the
But John, see, I didn't really
real estate.
I didn't really own it in a way, in that I just stumbled through it, and the people wanted to whatchamacallit, they had to get out of it.
No.
So I got a good deal, and I never had to put the money up. Meaning, those houses in Vinton, I just gave him, I had a couple other buildings, and so he held the paper, and I gave him the amount of money he needed to go do what he wanted to do. And then I rented them out, and within 2 or 3 years, I paid off him holding the paper. And so all the real estate I ever owned, I bought at a ridiculous, I paid the most for anything for this place. And it was, in terrible shape, right? And so anyway, there I'm in Lynchburg, and I'm reading palms, and so what I would do is I would check in at, the earliest you could check in on Friday was 12:30 in the afternoon, right? And they had a nice Friday kind of lunch into dinner, like from 11:30 in the morning till 11:30 at night. The dining room was doing a really nice meal. Anyway, if you got this weekend deal for 60-something bucks, you could eat in the restaurant as much as you wanted, and you'd have the big fancy Friday night dinner, which was lobster Newburg, really good lobster Newburg. And Saturday night dinner was roast beef with all the trimmings. And then Sunday was Sunday brunch, and it was really good. So but I was living downtown above there, but I would, walk down the main street, check into the hotel, and I would get the only jacuzzi room they had, and they had sliding door right onto the pool, right? And they had room service, So for 60-something bucks, I got a suite, all the room service I wanted, these 3 really fancy meals, and so I would walk down there, check in, and they let me have my dogs there. That was the other amazing thing. They just let me have the dogs there. And so I was pretty well known on at least the main drag of Lynchburg. There was a tobacco store that was still open.
Why do they call it Lynchburg?
Because that's where they hung people. That's true.
No, it was because there was a family with the last name Lynch.
So anyway, So I basically did that every weekend. When I was in town. I mean, if I wasn't
I
there,
used to think that it was because it was they lynch people too.
Right. And that was
And
a
then
joke, son.
and then I was like, obviously it's because somebody had the last name Lynch, like George Lynch or whatever it was.
So I would stay at that place, and I would read palms, and I'd make $100, right? So 60 something of it would go to that, and the rest would, go in my pocket. Anyway, so I'm there one of these weekends, and it's always these lesbian girls, right? And so and they all knew me, and I'm always reading them and giving them advice and blah blah blah. So one day, one Friday evening, these LU boys show up, and there's all these girls there, right? And hey, baby, how you doing? And they are really crass, they are really sexist, they're really misogynist, and so these girls are playing pool. They had a pool table there, and they're playing pool. And this guy and the girl is leaning over to make a shot, and one of these LU guys touches her ass, right? He thinks it's his right to do it. And she swings around the pool cue and whacks him upside the head.
Wow.
Just wow! And he had never had a woman do that to him, ever. And he had an immediate erection. Right? His dick went, this girl hits him, and she didn't break his head she just got his attention. So he's go, wow! He was, like I said, he had this gigantic erection. And she goes, oh, look at that. You like being beat up by women. And she goes, I can take care of that. And he goes, what do you mean? She goes, well, I have a domineering kind of personality. I think I can, really? She goes, yes. And she goes, why don't we play pool for it? He goes, what do you mean? And she goes, well, we'll play pool. And if you win, I will, take you, upstairs to a closet up there, and I will give you a sexual experience you've never had in your freaking life. And then his erection gets even bigger. Bing! It's like humming. And so, they start playing, and she goes, you break. So he actually can play relatively well. And he gets 2 or 3 balls in, and he thinks he's got it. He's going to run the table, and this girl. So it gets her, and so if he wins, she's going to sexually excite him up in the closet. And if she wins, he has to give her $100.
Oh.
And so before they even start, she says, give that guy over there, pointing to me, the $100, right? He'll hold it, and and he's the one trustworthy guy in his place, that guy. So he does, gives me the $100. I stick it under a book, under the Bible, and so she just cleans his clock. This guy spends he just goes across the street to the cash machine and gets more money. He goes through $2,000 that night. She takes him for $2,000 in cash. Anyway.
So that's the end of the story?
What? No. This is just the beginning.
No, I can't keep filming.
So, well, you keep interrupting, and so that's what happens. If you let me tell the story, I can do it in a succinct way. But you interrupt, and then I go off on other tangents. But anyway, so she takes this guy for $2,000. So everyone is drinking like, sailors. And these girls are now having sex on the pool table. It's getting to be about 1 o'clock. And the woman who is, it's her bar, it's her idea. She doesn't want to go to jail. And so she, girls. And they're too drunk to listen to her. So I'm packing up, going, okay, I'm not going to be here. And she goes, no, you got to get them out of here. And she goes, I go, get them out? Yeah, just, you can get them to do anything. And I said, okay. So I said, go get a box from the warehouse.
What did you do to them?
And put some booze in it. So the girls are like just hoping it up, playing the jukebox, you know, humping each other on the dance floor. And I go, girls, girls. And I got these 2 bottles of booze in my hand going, girls, girls, look. And so they look up and, booze. Because she'd already closed down the bar. And I said, listen, I'm walking back to my suite on the top of the Holiday Inn. And there's nobody on that floor. And there's a jacuzzi and a pool. And you can take all your clothes off and have sex in the pool and have a real party, you know, where you can be totally uninhibited. And they go, yeah, yeah. So they're like football, but yeah. And so
the football players were there?
There's no, these girls. But they're acting like guys. They're all in flannel shirts and they're, yeah. And we're going down the main drag and oh, we're gonna get laid, party, right? And they got the booze in their hand and I just walk. And now I have been at this hotel.
Did they like you?
The girls? They liked me. They didn't want to have sex with me. They're lesbians.
Oh.
They're all real lesbians.
Oh,
not pretend lesbians. Not like, I'm going to try it out. No, these girls were the real deal. You know, truck drivers, auto mechanics. Anyway, guy lesbians. Anyway, so, and they had a few of the girlies from the college there. And so we're all like going up the main street going, party. And I walk, you know, into the lobby and the guys in the lobby don't even blink, because I've already been doing this meaning reading palms and spending whenever I'm there the weekend at having my suite. You know, so the owner, the manager, they're my buds. The night manager, my bud. I've read everyone's palms. I tip really well. No one in Lynchburg tips really well. You know, I would give, because I would, you know, make $100 a night reading palms, so I'd have $40-50 in my pocket. And so, you know, when I would get a cheeseburger at 1 in the morning when I came in, I'd tip the guy $20. You know, the cheeseburger cost $4 on my bill, and I didn't have to pay it because I got X amount of room service, etc. for this suite deal. Anyway, so I could do anything in this place. So I walk in with like 12 girls going, party! It's like 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning, maybe 1:30 in the morning, but it's past 1, that's for sure. And we walk down, there's no one in town, no cops, no nothing. We walk into the hotel, we take the elevator up to the suite. I, you know, get a garbage pail from the janitor's thing and put a plastic bag in it and fill it with ice and get a whole package of styrofoam cups. And I said, come on, girls. And they carried it to my suite, out through the sliding door, into the pool. And so they had ice, booze, and I just closed the door, closed the curtains, and went, you know, took a shower, got in the jacuzzi, kind of got, oh yeah, and then went to bed. So that's about 1:30, right? Phone rings around 6 a.m., right? I don't want to wake up. So phone rings, and it's Bob, the security guy. He goes, Al, you got to get those girls out of your room. I said, what girls? And he goes, those women that came in with you, those girls, those women, those. He couldn't say the word lesbian, right? And he goes, what are you talking about? Because I totally, you know. And he goes, no, they're in the pool naked fucking. They got dildos. And I go, how do you know that? So, well, we have security cameras and I videotaped it. We won't believe what these girls have been doing. And he goes, but they can't stay there because the church crowd is going to be here in about 2 hours, and those girls can't even be on the premises. They can't even be up there. Even if nobody comes up, they can't be. Those church people will smell it out. So you got to get them out of there. And I said, okay. I said, what I need from you is room service. I want you to bring up like big urns of the strongest frigging coffee you got. And I said, so what do you got? You got grits or oatmeal? He goes, we got both. I said, well, another big pot of mix it together, put a lot of cinnamon, cheese, and butter, and stir it up. And if you got any shrimp, throw that in there too. So, room service guy shows up 10 minutes later with these big urns of coffee and coffee cups and a big pot of jambalaya oatmeal. That's what I call it. And, I go out there and go, come on, ladies, it's time to go. I got breakfast. And then by this time, they've been fucking all night with dildos, and the guy's been videotaping it. And so they're tired and they're hungry, and they do want to go home. I mean, they were going to just come into my suite and fall asleep. So, no, you got to go home, because the church people are going to come, and you know what that means. And so, yes, but I got breakfast for you. I got coffee, got Danish. And so they had took an hour. They took showers. They got dressed, and they just all hugged me and said, "You're the best, Al. You're the best." And I said, "Okay, we're gonna I'm gonna ring for the service elevator, and they're gonna take you down the service elevator, and you're gonna go out the back onto loading dock." So, no problem. So they did. So they didn't even go to the lobby. They went down the service elevator. The guy escorted, and these girls. The guy who was, the elevator operator, he goes, those girls gave me $100. Because they all gave him like $5, $10, $15. So he said that was the most amazing, tip he said, no one ever, I'm a janitor, no one ever tips me. And so, gotta step back. I mean, that thing has a zoom. Use the friggin' zoom. Don't get close. So anyway, that was that night, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the rumor of that was all around town, because people saw us marching down Main Street going, party, party. People saw us go in there.
Yeah.
People saw them coming out the next morning at 8 o'clock.
And they're on ecstasy or something, or
no, they were just drunk.
Or they're drunk.
Drunk and lesbian.
And they're naked in public, having sex in public.
Well,
and the cops didn't do anything to them?
Well, the pool wasn't public. It's upstairs. And they weren't naked in the bar. They were just humping each other on the dance floor.
In the hotel pool?
Yeah, upstairs on the roof.
So the hotel would have had to say something about it if they wanted to get them in trouble. Because, see, the thing is, the past 6 years here, I can't do any slight thing against the law.
Everyone knew I did shit like that, and I knew the police, I knew everybody in Lynchburg at that time. So I'm not even done with the story. So that goes down, no one gets in trouble, everyone's had a great time, everyone's got a story, everyone got, tipped real well, and so the next weekend I'm there, and so, I show up, and I wouldn't put it that close to the edge. You don't want it to fall over onto the floor. Anyway, so I'm there, and the girls are there, and everyone's having a good time, and it's early. It's like it's about 8, 9 in the evening, right? People haven't gotten really drunk. Things haven't gotten wild yet. And the girls are going, we're going to have another night up it says another sweet night, right? It's going to be sweet. That's what they called it, sweet night. It's all sweet, and they called me Mr. Sweet. Anyway, so I'm there, and who fucking walks in but Jerry Falwell, right?
Oh.
In his $3,000 suit, and he's and I was a pretty big guy in those days. I was like about that big, but he was about that big.
He was heavy?
Oh, beyond heavy.
How heavy? 400 pounds?
600 pounds.
600 pounds? Why did he get so heavy? It's terrible.
Because he was like me. He was a total hedonist. There are other Latin words I could use. But anyway, and he had two guys that looked like they were from the CIA. They had, not as expensive suits as he had, but they had little things in their ear, and they were talking in their shirts, and it was nighttime, and they were wearing sunglasses, right? And they had military haircuts, and they were his guard. They were on either side of him, and when he sat down, they held his arm and eased him into the chair. And they brought a chair with him because no chair in a restaurant or any place else was big enough for him. So he had his own chair. So they walked in, helping him in. They had this chair. They unfolded it. They put it down. They eased him into his own chair. This is Jerry Falwell of Liberty University. You know, Mr. What was he? The moral majority, Jerry Falwell.
So he had that image of being that one way, but in his real life, he was a little bit of a sinner.
I won't say any more than that. So anyway, he sits down and he goes, I hear you're the devil, right? And I have the Bible, a real Bible, not that kind of Bible, the real old Bible on there. And I have other theological...
That's a real Bible. That's the New Testament.
It's not the real Bible, it's just the New Testament, John.
I know.
But that's not the real Bible.
I
The real
like
Bible,
it.
for it to be a real Bible, has to have the Old Testament and New together. And it has to be, if you really want, if you're a theologian, you pretty much want it in Greek. And I had one in friggin' Greek. Right? And I had a number, there's other
Some
books.
of the Old Testament's wrong.
Oh, you know, John?
That's why Jesus had to come down to get the New
So you
Testament.
know, John, you have degrees in theology. You went to
That's why God
you went
sent his
to
only
Cambridge. You went to
Because
Harvard. Where
Why would I have to
where
go
do
to
you
Harvard?
get your province to say this? Did God talk to you? Are you Moses?
Because the Bible tells me so.
Anyway, let me finish the story here. Again, you don't want to run out of time. So Jerry sits down and goes, "You're the devil." And then he kind of looks at all the books I have, and I have the accordion on, which is it's a super duper Roman Catholic code book of the New Testament,
Oh.
of the words that Jesus said.
Yeah, because you went to all those schools. and
Right, I went to be a
teachers.
Catholic priest, I went to be a rabbi, I learned Greek, I had all of that, I had the providence. And Jerry's looking at these books and he goes, so how do you use these? And I said, Jerry, let me read your palm. So he puts his palm, I read the palm. And then I go, I take out the Greek Bible and I say, Jerry, hold it in your left hand and just thumb through the pages and stop at a page. And then open the book, close your eyes, and go like this, right? And so he does, and I read him what he points out. Actually, he read it himself, and he started to cry.
He did?
Yes, he started to cry.
Hmm.
And I said, Jerry, what's up? Because this, section, is the most important part of all the teachings of Jesus to me.
Oh, okay.
And he opened the book with his eyes closed and went like this, and he picks the one thing that means, and that's why he's crying.
Oh.
And he goes, so what are you doing here? I said, well, I live upstairs, this girl's my friend, and I am teaching Jesus' word to everyone. And look who is the clientele here. And he goes, tainted women. I said, come on, Jerry. He goes, okay, women that aren't accepted. So I said, come on, Jerry. And he goes, okay. I said, so instead of teaching down to them, I try to help them see what they're doing.
Okay.
And he's going, wow, that's amazing. That's what I wanted to do. That's what my father wanted to do. And we became rich and famous, and we were drawn away, right? And Epicurean, that's the word that most fits Jerry the best. And you got that? Epicurean. Look it up in your Latin dictionary. So anyway,
Jerry Falwell maybe still got into heaven even though he sinned a little
John,
bit.
buddy,
or whatever.
everyone gets to go to heaven. Everyone.
It doesn't say that in the Bible. It says narrow is the path to heaven and wide is the path of destruction in the second hell.
Right.
And
we have all
the
the
second death was your
and all of that is a way for us to learn. Meaning, we are all God's children. We all get to go to heaven, but
It's
we
supposed to
don't
be
do it
difficult.
like this, buddy. It takes effort. It takes focus. It may take a long time. And humans have been doing this for a long time. And the times anyway, so Jerry goes, you should teach at my school. I said, Jerry, come on. Come on. He goes, no, I have all these pinheads who are spouting, they don't even know that. Now, Jerry knew his Bible. I mean, he just didn't spout shit off. He was right on. And because he had tasted the fruit from every side of because when he was a young guy, his father would fly around the East Coast in this little plane and preach. That's how he became big.
Oh.
He flew around in a little airplane to different, to West Virginia, to here, there, and everywhere.
His father was already doing that stuff?
Yeah, like in the 30s.
Oh.
Right? And so Jerry, when he came up in the 50s, and he was, this was obviously his path.
I thought, when I was way younger, I thought, from what I'd heard about Jerry Falwell, I thought, oh, he's the religious right or whatever.
He was.
And I wasn't as into it.
That is how he made the billions of dollars, was through politics.
When I went to Liberty, there's this beautiful, godly sunset. It was special.
Oh, that piece of property.
Special about that school.
Because what it is its own little valley. Meaning there's mountains all around.
I'd maybe want to teach there.
Okay. So, go teach, you could do it over the internet. You could teach there.
They have a film.
They got every department. That's a big fucking school. You could teach there, and you could do it from here. But anyway, I'm digressing. The story's not,
I'm Christian.
The fucking story is not over. So Jerry's going, and we're starting to have a real deep conversation and he's telling me about his whole life. So he learned how to fly, and when he was in his 20s, and his dad's making some serious money, and in the 50s, before he had to go into the family business, he went and had a good time. Right? And he said, I was like you, Mr. Sweet. So he heard the story of the girls in the pool from the church people. I mean, even though they didn't find the girls up there, that Lynchburg was a small town. And so they didn't, people would just smile at me and tip their hat. Even the church people would, because they were so down low. And I wasn't doing anything bad or in their face. I was just being a cheeky monkey, and they liked it. And since there was only one of me, I didn't have my own religion, there wasn't a crowd, there wasn't a movement, I was just having a good time. And people enjoyed that, right? So anyway, so Jerry goes, you should teach. I said, come on, Jerry. No. What I can do, Jerry, I said, first off, I'm making way more as an electrician working for Bob over there, wiring the jails and the courthouses and the hospitals, than you could ever pay me. What do you pay your teachers? What's a tenured professor? He goes, well, I don't allow tenured professors.
He only hires the
adjuncts, and gets rid of them. When they want more money, they're there 3 or 4 years, and they go, well, shouldn't I get more than $112 a week? No, you're fired. So, and he's making a buku, lots of bucks, because he hadn't even started building yet. Where do you think he got all the money to do that?
Because
the religious right is where
his father had already.
He had TV shows.
Encouraged him to do the same thing that his father.
He was making billions.
Pretty big with it.
His father was not like his, So Jerry, really went Epicurean. Look it up. When he was young, right? And party until he was in the airplane. So he would fly to Las Vegas. He'd fly to LA. He would party outside of Lynchburg. No one knew what he was doing. And then his dad got sick, and he came back and picked up his father's biz and got the big house, got the big church. And then he went max. He went into politics. He went into TV. He went into publishing. He went into having a college. And he just, the religious right, the neocons, had more money than God and realized his value as a political tool to change the country. And that's what he did. And so, anyway, So we would have conversations about all of this. So that night, we, talk, and it kind of put, not a damper, but the girls weren't as party as, is it still running?
Yeah.
Okay. So that night, it's getting towards around midnight. He showed up. So it was still sunny when he showed up, and it was like getting close towards midnight. And the girl closes up at 1, and his security's going, Dr. Falwell, we have to go. It's past your bedtime. And so Jerry goes, listen, this is the best conversation I've had in my 50 years, And he gave me his card. He goes, he scribbled down this is my private cell phone. You call it, I'll pick up. Nobody was like, oh, I don't know. Well, take a minute. No, okay. I picked this up because I don't give this number. You call anytime. And he goes, you call anytime. And he goes, I have just built myself my own diner on the campus. It's called Docks. When you're on 460 and you're driving through the campus, it's right on the hill, right next to their ski hill, and it's called Docks. And he had a whole section just for himself. And he would have like 20, 30 egg omelets. For breakfast, he'd have a steak, a lobster, and a 20 or 30, And so you go, I want to kill myself. He was with food. He was that big.
But do you think he maybe didn't care inside and he was sad?
Yes, because we talked about that. So once a week, I would cruise into Doc's, get him on the cell, like, hey Doc, and I call him Doc or Jerry, and hey, what are you doing tomorrow at around 9 a.m.? You gonna be at your diner? He said, oh yes, I'll be waiting for you. So I would go there. He got a cappuccino machine because I liked cappuccino. So, and I would go there, and I would spend until about 10:30 because I couldn't leave those morons to their own devices on these jobs. So at 10:30 I said, Doc, I'm going to, what's the rest of your schedule? And he goes, well, I have a couple of meetings. I got to go now. I've already made these people wait an hour. So about around 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm going to come back for cocktails, right? And now, it's a dry county, and he's having cocktails, and and he'd smoke these cigars that were yummy, and then we'd eat some more, and so that's what once a week I would do that with him, and that's when I really started to pack it on, because I was still going up on ladders and
so maybe that's why you started to gain weight.
Yeah, I mean, I was already gaining weight 10 years before then. But not like I went Jerry. I was one of Jerry's kids. And so I was in Lynchburg for a year or so. And then I kind of did a job in Maryland. I drive to Maryland to do a job for this electrician I work for on a hospital. And he then said, in Roanoke, we're building condos. And I need you to go there and run all the underground and put in all the distribution and set the job up. Things are framed and they're ready to put the stuff in, and I can't let my boys run it; they'll destroy this job. So anyway, I did. I finished up in Maryland, and then I went to Roanoke, and this place, it was right along 460, just as you pull in. And there's that Kroger's, newish Kroger's, and that strip shopping thing, that Kroger's right on 460. And they have houses up on the hill. There's like a big development up there. And you go further, and there's condos, really nice condos along 460, and they're set back. And so they were building those, and they had one section, the A section, done. And he says,
it makes me feel bad to hear working on condos or those other things.
Why?
Like, I have no interest in it. I can't see why he wanted to do it.
Because they paid me ridiculous amounts of money, and I enjoyed doing electric work, and I didn't have to work hard.
For you, okay.
I was getting paid $3,800 a week. cash and a free condo.
What did it feel like to actually have to do that stuff?
Great.
No, it's never felt that way for me, ever.
Electric
For real estate.
Electric work
For
for
movies,
me.
yeah.
Electric
I
work
did
for
movies.
me was something I enjoyed, and I was doing the part of it I liked. I mean, I didn't have to drill the holes and pull the wire and set the box. If I had to do that shit at 56, I'd be miserable. But I had, I had the boys that I had, and these guys were going to inherit this
I
guy's
think
business.
part of the thing that I get from this whole this conversation is that you got to enjoy being in this part of the country.
Right.
You got to enjoy being here, doing these different things.
Yep.
And it was like you got to do cool stuff that was fun, or stuff that was fun and enjoyable, and work on things.
Yep. And make pretty good money.
Yeah, and even talk with Jerry Falwell.
Right.
And
And
stuff.
not just talk. He was my bud.
Yeah.
That the year and a half before he died, I was the closest thing to a real friend because he could tell. I'm only telling you guys now that Jerry Falwell died probably 15 years ago. And I've never really told this story on YouTube, right? And don't believe a word I say. Remember, I am a griot. I make these stories up. So all of you, don't turn it off. All of you morons, and morons.
You said moron right after you told me to not turn it off.
Because I'm talking to them, not you. I didn't call you a moron. I didn't
can't
call
take
you
this
a moron,
anymore.
John. You take everything. One reason why you can't have fun, you are trigger ready to take anything as an insult and then get your body all riled up and your cortisol goes way up and then you feel upset.
No, I feel okay right now.
Okay, so this is just a story, gang. You don't have to, come with pitchforks and burning torches. And when I say Jerry, I'm talking about Jerry Gottlieb, the used car salesman, right? So anyway,
Who's Jerry Gottlieb?
John.
Was that Jerry Falwell's name?
Yes,
He was really Jewish?
yes,
Gottlieb?
yeah. Don't believe a word I say. Don't believe a word I say. Don't believe a word I say. Just enjoy the story. All those stories on John's channel that John has become famous over is because you've enjoyed the story. You haven't got caught up in it, right? And I'm telling John this story because here is a neighborhood that he thinks right wing, Donald Trump land, blah, 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 blah. No, it's not. It's just America. It's got a slice of everyone's pie. And everyone thinks Lynchburg is the most rabid, right-wing, born-again Christian place. It's not. Like I said, there was a lesbian bar right on Main Town, and everyone knew it. Just like in
But
Roanoke.
Donald Trump is an entertainment. He's an entertainer.
Yeah, he's an
He
entertainer.
understands musicians.
Yes, he understands. He understands entertaining, and he's not a politician. Donald Trump never was and never will be into process. He will never be into, making sure that you get health care or, that you get your Social Security check. Not really. And kids, I would say by July 4th, or sometime between July 4th and Christmas, the internet is going to crash and burn. Your car is not going to work. You thought it was bad. Oh, I didn't have gasoline for 3 days. Well, there's not going to be anything in the stores. And if you morons, not you, John, I'm not talking to you. You're not a moron. You're John Birmingham.
Move away from the
The
camera.
most
Anyway,
amazing.
morons.
He's the most amazing, accomplished filmmaker, brilliant drummer, artist. He's better
Move the camera a little bit to the left.
he's
Little bit to the
better.
left.
He's
Moron.
better. He's better than Da Vinci. Just look at him. He's like that David.
No.
If you took his
No.
pants off, his penis is bigger than David's is.
No.
So anyway, have fun with this summer. And you think, oh, we got our shots. It's all good. We're going to be fine. There's going to be a spike that's going to make India look like going to Dairy Queen, right? And the real sad thing is, old farts like me, we're not going to get it, right? The shot I got will be fine. But for young people, ooh, baby, because I'm too old.
We won't get it either.
I'm too old for the shot to catch up to me. But if you get that shot and you're young, not to say it's bad or it's not going to do anything, but it's been rolled out like that. There's no real testing. People are, I don't know, most other vaccines take 15 years. So it's either one thing or the other, meaning this was either a pandemic, that the virus was engineered, and they had, whenever you make a chimera, you don't put it out unless you have the vaccine, right? So anyway, and that's what Jerry talked about back in 2000. Don't turn it off. Back in 2000 and when was that? 2005.
I gotta use the bathroom.
Well, use the bathroom. I'm not stopping you. You can use the bathroom.
No,
There's a door there. There's a door there.
I gotta really take my time and use the bathroom.
So open the door, go in there, take your time, use the bathroom.
But it'd be filming the sounds of me farting and stuff.
Who cares? Do you care? Yeah,
I'm
YouTube
gonna turn it
audience,
off.
do you care
I gotta
about that?
turn it off.
Okay, so come. Wait, whoa! Don't turn it off
Dreamy
yet.
Dream-
Don't turn it
Dreamy
off,
channel.
kid. No! Hey, he's hurting me. He's hurting me. He's hurting me. Get the police. He's hurting me. Or go to my channel, Dreamy Dreamland. Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. It's not Dream Time with Al, like he has it on his channel. It's Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. If you want to hear the rest of that story, the uncut story. So we're turning it off so John can shit his wife away on his toilet. Go ahead, John. Take it away.
No.
Take it away. I'm not done with the story,
Bye.
but you're turning it off.
Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Check out my channel, especially his channel.
Dreamy
'cause
Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob.
He needs the subscribers.
Right, and you want to talk to me?
More videos on my channel too. I really,
Talk to me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Dude Awake at 42 at
And
Gmail.
look up just Owl Bob on YouTube, and you should his channel should be at the top.
But it's Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Owl Bob.
Okay, bye.